Welcome to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by HAYVN, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. I am excited to be here with Mike Duda. Did I say it right, Mike?
You did.
Great. Mike is the co-founder and managing partner of Bullish, and Bullish is an early-stage consumer investment firm and marketing agency. I can't wait to dive into that part. Based in New York, their investments include some consumer brands that you've heard of, Harry's, Peloton, Warby Parker. But Mike, you've advised me to say Bubble Beauty is the brand you're most excited about. So we're going to hear more about that. Welcome to the HAYVN Hubcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Nancy.
This is exciting. So, Mike, you're coming to us by way of, you've been one of the judges at the HAYVN Hatch, which most listeners know as what we call kind of our nice Shark Tank pitch fest. And I think you have come to HAYVN because of your experience as an investor and your marketing background. You know, these are kind of sometimes left and right brain, or not necessarily two skills or functions of business that go together. What was your background? Was it in marketing? Was it in investing and finance?
Yeah, sure. No, it's marketing and advertising. You know, I had a almost 20-year career just doing marketing and advertising. I love it. I still do. You know, where the finance part cut in is I was starting to realize in the early couple years back that these Wall Street people were kind of moving in more and more and cutting marketing. CFOs or Wall Street analysts cutting marketing, first thing heading into tough times, and it's being the last thing restored. And as someone who believes, like, if you do marketing and you align marketing correctly, you can help build stronger businesses faster. Not just from a growth perspective, but also from a profitability perspective. So the two worlds were just so, far apart, it's not even funny. And I'm like, well, what would happen if you align the two? Probably the same way someone thought, what if we put chocolate and peanut butter together? No one thought about it. Boom, you have Snickers. You know, we've been doing it for 12, 13 years. I had some bumps and bruises, but more and more, and the way the world's going, it just like, I think we're onto something.
I have so much to dive into. I'm going to go back on your marketing, and I mean, it makes total sense now that you're explaining it. Going back to the marketing and the agency side, did you come in through the creative? Did you come through the big ideas? Did you come in because you could do media buys? What did your role in the advertising and agency world look like before you came into this?
Yeah,
or all of the above?
Yeah. Sure. I was on the agency side, most prominently with Donnie Deutsch, which I'm sure that's a polarizing name for most people. On that side, I was brand management, business development, corporate strategy. I was blessed in 13, 14 years there to have, I think, 8 different jobs, it felt like. It was such a strong culture and great place. We were one of the most awarded agencies in the United States for a long period of time. And I still love it. And it's different. It's irrational. It requires some gut and some right brain, which is sometimes left brain financiers can't figure out how to deal with us. But when it works, oh, Nancy, it's amazing.
Mike, you said you had 8 jobs. Do you think that's also what helped you make this transition into understanding the financial side, right? Like, you weren't just seeing one part of the marketing operation. You were kind of getting a more holistic picture. Is that kind of, do you think, helpful in what guided you into getting to the investing side?
That's an interesting observation. I don't think I've ever heard it before, but in processing, I think you're right, because with the speed of business today and to be an entrepreneur, it's just like your ability to context switch, your ability to figure stuff out quickly, if not imperfectly, matters. And the fun being on the agency side, one is professional services. So you got to be able to be faster and jump and make sure you hit deadlines. The also fun is you get to learn different businesses. On Microsoft and DirecTV to Under Armour and Nike and all these things in between. It's like being on Jeopardy, the game show. You get to learn a lot about a lot of different businesses and seeing what works in corporate culture, what works in different environments. Coke and Pepsi are like, people think it's one or the other, but you couldn't have two diametrically different cultures from what's in Atlanta with Coca-Cola and what's in Westchester in Pepsi. So it's a lot of fun. But to your point, it did, I think, prepare me pretty well for the voyage that we've been on.
And I mean, it makes, now that you're walking us through, making total sense. Just for people who are thinking about their careers or seeing things beyond, at what point, if it's not too personal, did you say, wait, there is something here? How did you're a co-founder of a business yourself. When did you know it was time? Was it a gut check? Was it a big risk? Or had it been brewing alongside? And it sounds like you were creating something that didn't exactly exist, taking advantage of some, maybe some blue ocean or white space. How did that come about?
Yeah, like anything else, it was like a bubbling powder keg where I was more and more, it's like these two worlds are far apart. I had a chip on my shoulder that these Wall Street finance types were just wrong. And yet where they were right, marketing firms are like law firms. You charge an hourly rate to create outputs, but you have no correlation to the outcomes. And I say Wall Street very broadly, finance, you are in the outcome business. And what have you done for me lately versus the guaranteed cash? And so as time was wearing on, and this is like right heading into like the financial crisis or whatsoever, is just, I was looking for evidence to show I was right. Listen, I'm a stubborn Leo. I admit that. And I'll never forget the day, September 29th, 2008. The market dropped 777 points, which was ghastly at the time. And just saw this like tidal wave of economic doom coming to the marketing industry, because marketing always leads it. I didn't realize to what degree. And the next day I went in and quit. And I'm like, I got to do this other thing. It's just like, it's irrational, but it's just, I was finding reasons to do it. And, so I was supposed to give a 6-month notice. Donnie was tremendous, as it was Linda Sawyer, who was the CEO of the company at the time. And a 6-month notice is like, wound up being 2 years. Like they gave me 2 years of runway to like do certain things. Cause it wouldn't be a good look if right. Apparently I might've been somebody back in the day. It wasn't a good look to the company to leave that time. And I love the place. Listen, I met my wife there. I thought I was going to retire from there. And here I was in my mid-30s saying like, I just see a better way. And I didn't want to be that guy that said, you know what? I had an idea and then I didn't do it. And so some 2 years later after that day, with all friends and family from my past life behind it, it's like officially launched into a career where didn't pay myself for 18 months, had a wife 6 months pregnant with our third child at a time like all these prices seemed to going up and dues at the club and everything, and learned so much. And the roller coaster of going from whatever stability looked like to the highest highs and lowest lows, often within the same hour.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship brings.
Amazing. And as the managing partner, were you all alone? Were you like a one-man shop, but you say co-founder? How did you figure out who your team or who was going to start out with you?
Yeah, it's funny. It was mostly me, and I had a great assistant that kind of followed me from my past life, and co-founder Steve Nash, who was in the NBA at the time, who had been my intern. Google that for a separate story. There's actually a movie on Amazon Prime about it, partially, but it was kind of so with some support from great people like the Fazingas and Greenwich and others. So, but it was like I was, if the analogy is like breakfast, like there's the eggs and the bacon. Well, the pig was committed, the chicken participated. You're talking to the bacon.
Got it. You've alluded to the highs and the lows and your previous experience. I'm going to fast forward to say you started and having a chip on your shoulder and wanting to prove something. And we've talked left brain, right brain. I'm curious if things also became easier to quantify from a marketing standpoint than they had been, right? Like, are we now at the time where there's actually some data coming in? I know social media was not quite where it is, now, but was it easier to quantify your results or how data points from the marketing perspective and the branding perspective that we didn't have 10 years before you launched your business?
Yes and no. It's very much yes, but business got too drunk on what the solve was.
Okay.
And by that I mean the Facebook and Googleization before iOS 14 and Apple. And so we saw a lot of founders, especially with young emerging businesses, spend almost all their money on Google and Facebook and digital acquisition. And it's great as you can see ROAS, you can see things like CAC. You can see that. You can see demonstrable numbers, if you will, but it's any complete marketing, like no rational person spends all of her time on Facebook and Google. And if you look at retail, like 85%, even post-pandemic, 85% of all purchases are made in real life, not on an Amazon, not on a clown.com, not wherever else. So it's just, there's certain things that influence us in society or in actions or different elements of it. Now, mind you, we're exposed to 35 to 38,000 messages a day. So things became more quantifiable. Like when I hear the quote, like, I waste half my money in advertising, I don't know which half. It's like nails to a board for me.
They still say that, right?
Yeah. But where that was really progressed from is the marketing function and the brand function had become so far away from the C-suite. It's not even funny. I think 70% of CEOs or C-suites today are financially driven, have financial backgrounds, and only 10% have marketing backgrounds. And I think those with marketing backgrounds are going to become more in vogue because the more you know about what your customer wants and consumer needs and have that feedback loop in business, the more successful you're going to be. I won't go into the 7 years ago, there used to be 4 TV channels and before the internet. But the reality is there's a more full tilt approach versus just the arms race that is like digital acquisition marketing is needed.
Moving from that thought and kind of like what the environment was and how you got into it and what's going on, I'm very curious now about kind of present tense and the types of either companies you're working with or the state that they're in when they come to you when you say early stage consumer investment firm. Just to sort of, for listeners, put it in perspective, what does that look like in terms of either their size or their team or their revenues? I don't need to be that specific because I'm going to tease out like sometimes too early in a stage, they haven't figured out the branding and the marketing. And I'm dying to know how you come into that picture.
Bullish will invest in pre-seed, as in pre-launch, seed, Series A, young ideas and young companies at the earliest stages possible. As I will crassly say, we will come in stupid early. We invested in Peloton. It was before the bike was done. Harry's, we incubated them in our back. Bubble Beauty, it was about 8 months before launch. And so it's a power law. If you get in early, you might lose on some, but the great thing about investing in early stage startups is you can lose your money once on any individual deal. But in the case of like the Pelotons of the world and Bubbles, you can make your money well over 20 times over. And so that's our belief is power law. In a world that there's so much dry powder out there, there's so much money, and on that, it's just staying small is bravery. And I know it's small and Fairfield County aren't one and the same in the world of hedge funds and private equity and financial engineering, but it's just like it's good old fashioned growth. And so if the branding isn't fixed, that's fine. Not everything's perfect. And that's why you're making a bet. But I often say business is an overly complicated game until you factor in the human beings. And it's so much about the human beings. So when we look across, if we're deemed successful, it's like we were smart enough to give some highly, highly talented chip on the shoulder entrepreneurs money to be involved. And some we helped a lot. Others we didn't help as much, but it just, as Warren Buffett said, there's no X points for degree of difficulty. And that's why like in even around HAYVN started getting involved like maybe 2 years ago, just to see the overall talent, the ambition, just the overall numbers has gone up and up and up. And in a post-pandemic world where somehow Shark Tank is like the new, like America's like show versus Sports Center, I'm going to do a triple negative. There's no reason why you can't succeed because of what you don't know. That's what excites me about today is we're trying to find those people that could be in Riverside, Connecticut. They might be in Des Moines, Iowa, or Syracuse, New York. They don't have to be in New York, San Francisco, or LA anymore. You could be anywhere. And so that's the fun of what I get to do each day.
I love that. I want to get back to the human part, but I want to tease back again in the olden golden days, or somebody brings in their pitch deck and they have their financial forecast out for the 5 and 10 year plan, right? And in, let's say, the traditional models, then you invest and you might put somebody on the board and they're going to sit and, like, as you said, cut costs. What does your model look like, or how is it different when you come with this agency and marketing perspective Is it figuring out their audience? Do you still take a board position? Is it that you basically overhaul their market? I mean, I'm being overly simplistic, but what does it look like to come in with your expertise and not necessarily the focus on what the numbers are and exiting in 5 years?
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, we care about numbers. I'm a capitalist. I'll make loads of money for us and our investors. But in the very beginning, I was so obsessed about getting into know the right venture capital firms, and they'd bring us in and oh, I got into a deal that Sequoia did or First Round Capital. What I started to gain more confidence in is we just saw the world differently. Coming from the world of marketing, advertising, yeah, you do ads, you do things like that. We've done Super Bowl commercials. But you understand consumer behavior and motivations. So what we like to say, we only invest in US-based consumer. I don't think there's another firm out there in this country outside of Bullish that knows the demand side of the equation quite like we do. And that's because of the marketing side. If we believed all the pitch decks that came our way, we would have lost a lot of money by this point. At a certain point, I'll get into financial modeling, 5 or 10 years. That's cute. I don't know what I'm doing this weekend. So let's do 5 or 10 year predictions. They bring in this false bravado and this false confidence on a best case scenario. And Wall Street loves their models and everything like that. But the day that's all rational and everything, and the days those are correct is a different day. I mean, we see publicly traded companies get those wrongs quarter over quarter. So what do I expect an early stage entrepreneur to do? And everything's a base case. And the reason why is they're selling hope. They're trying to sell confidence that if you invest money, we're going to make you a lot of money. And so that's why entrepreneurs, they're great at storytelling, that are great at proving to us that they're uniquely put on this earth to solve a problem, and there's going to be financial gain from it. And yeah, if I just fell in love with whoever's good at pitching, that'd be one thing. But going back to the demand side, we'll study the behavior. What's going on in society? What's going on with this consumer audience? And to be clear, there's 333 million Americans in this country. Most of them don't have a 6-car garage in backcountry Greenwich. They don't live in Palo Alto. Tesla is not the number one selling car in America. It's the Ford F-150 for the past 15 years. So we really level set. Is this something that the early stage majority could adopt in real places? And so when we see things like, ooh, that's an $18 Wonder Juice. That's great. Are they going to buy that in Syracuse, New York, or eat it at Walmart? I don't know. We might like it, but we never assume that we are the consumer. And that is, again, all because we focus on the demand side of the equation, which comes out of marketing. So that's a long-winded answer to your question. So push back if I didn't.
No. That is very helpful. And also, like I said, in terms of seeing it or having it go through a filter and tick a certain amount of boxes, back to your point of, it sounds like there's a gut check. It sounds like there's a people connection. It sounds like there's a measured risk, but it's not too measured because you've got to go out and have a proof of concept. I'd love to, I feel like bringing together, you talked about the human connections, knowing the consumer. You've talked about just the power of, or we've talked about the power of community at HAYVN, supporting people. I know you also are a big fan of getting together and connecting people. What's your kind of philosophical viewpoint on how much people are part of the connection, part of your success, part of a company's success versus the technology, the financial wizards, the brain power, just the human connection? How much does that play a role in what you're working on?
It means everything. And again, I'm not someone that just does everything off vibes or that's good karma or anything like that. You need to back check it, but it's great jockeys win championships as much as the horses. And so that's just something that we study. And I'm a product of my environment. I didn't grow up with much in Syracuse, New York, and that's for another day. But if I didn't have people in my life like my partner, Brent Vartan, professionally, and Todd Benson, who's gone a long way to us, to my wife, Kristen, who is really believe an angel sent from God, you need that kind of stuff. It's, again, the human element is everything if you're scaling and leading. And one of the things that we try to screen for is when we're looking at companies, because we invest faith without too much evidence, or there might be some, is this person capable of leading and being a Pied Piper of really building a company? Or is this person an exceptional product person that can do a lot of stuff, but they're not going to be able to scale?
Right.
So that's a lot of things that we try and diagnose the same way too. But it's, we all try to sound smart with press releases. Well, we did this and all this data. Maybe I've just gotten, maybe I've lost my lucidity to some degree, or maybe I'm just more comfortable or getting older and I don't care. It's just great people make us look smarter than we are. And I am unapologetically a believer, and I have no problem admitting that or seeking that.
And I think also there's too much data, right? Like there's too much information. So between your gut, your experience, and figuring out what information is important to you at that time, one's got to sort of go with that perspective. Mike, you were gracious enough to be a host at HAYVN Hatch, and I know you've been in the community. We mostly focus on women or women-centric businesses and entrepreneurs. What's changed, or what should change, or what are women entrepreneurs facing? Is it different, or is the level, is the playing field finally level? What's your take on what's happening, and maybe your hope for change, or what you see coming down the pipeline or wish was coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it's like you said the word gracious. It's not gracious, it's selfish. We want to find the best entrepreneurs and the highest potential talent. And they're as likely to be on Post Road in Darien, Connecticut as they could be in New York City. And maybe that's not the truth, but my job is to find needles in the haystack. And in a world that the pandemic has just flung everything apart, like, and people have moved. I mean, look at the influx of great talent that moved to Connecticut. Like, I've met women that have come from San Francisco that have joined HAYVN, and Tidal River is part of it. So it's just like, we're just trying to find great people. I don't give a damn if they're male, female,
right,
like Cyclops, although I don't think I've met a Cyclops. So it's just, that's me recruiting, quite frankly. And it's like, if I can go to places maybe other venture capitalists aren't, like, I think we're getting an advantage and it's going to go up. So long-winded, I don't mean to be parental, but it's just like, I don't think it's gracious at all. I think it's selfish. What I've seen over the case of like HAYVN and others, it's just like female entrepreneurs have it tougher. And by the way, I'm not anti-data. I like to be data informed versus data driven, because until AI replaces my spleen, my heart, my liver, like, I'm going to still have human emotions and decisions. We're in the consumer business. 83% of consumer decisions and purchases are made by not my chromosomal set, probably yours. I can still say that in today's society. And so on top of that, if we're going to be a successful investor, you look what we've invested in the past. We're successful because we invested in a bike, a pair of glasses, a razor, a shampoo. And of course, I'm talking about Peloton and Warby Parker and Harry's and Function of Beauty. And so to us, more and more, we're trying to find places where there's normal people solving pain points and problems. Naivete, I think, is one of the most valuable weapons. And one of the things I've seen at HAYVN is that right mix of naivete, like someone who didn't spend 20 years at Gillette. Because guess what? If you spent 20 years at Gillette, you're not coming up with Harry's to disrupt it. No. Disruption can't happen from within. And, our marketing side does do work with private equity firms and strategics. And we just recently did something with Walmart and TaylorMade and JP Morgan. And we could see the corporate muscle memory is very restrictive. And so whether it relates to HAYVN or the female founders, it's just, if we're investing in consumer space and 83% of decisions are made by women, we're going to be probably looking for where like talented women are. And that's why I think it's 43% of our founders that we backed are females and CEOs of the companies. And that's not, we're trying to be good and I love women. I'm a capitalist. I want to make lots of money. And in the consumer space, the data spells that out. And again, it's not only just great people, just to show that we do some data, we like high gross margins. We like to see repeatable, strong repeat. We like to attack categories that there hasn't been a lot of innovation. I mean, that could be go into a Whole Foods, go into an Acme, and just we send people out to stores across the country every 6 weeks. So we're talking about Wegmans in Ithaca, New York, to Whole Foods in like Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and that stuff. And we're like, take pictures of aisles. It's just boring. And then you look at spices. Wow, it's just McCormick and then private label. There's nothing else. Go look at the bean category. There's some great upstarts out there called Heyday and a dozen cousins and everything. So we study weird stuff. Like, if you looked at my iPhone, you'd see way too many photos of aisles of different that doesn't make sense. And at the same time, it's shown up places like at HAYVN, where there could be, who's to say that the next Katrina Lake who started Stitch Fix isn't there?
Right.
They're as likely to be there, if not more so, than to be in anything like Y Combinator, where the tech bros are in San Francisco. So that's another long-winded answer to your question as to why.
I love it. And when you say female entrepreneurs have it harder, you're pointing out ways in which it should be easier for them and why there's opportunity in working with them. It's harder for them because they don't have the connections. It's harder for them because of this naivete. It's harder for them because the bro culture? What do you see are some of the obstacles for them getting the capital or being seen or being heard or getting a pitch deck on the top?
Listen, the data says like women raise X% of the capital, it's much lower and all that stuff. So let's start with there. It's like, one, this is flat out true. And listen, I think there's probably more male entrepreneurs out there overall, like they're seeking VC funding. To take a step back, 0.05% of startups get VC funding. So not every startup has to get VC funding on that side of it. So there's this overemphasis like, oh, you're doing a business, you must have venture capital funding. I'm going to point to something that is actually a strength. Stereotypes can be dangerous. They're shortcuts, but they can be dangerous. In women, we've seen a lot of people that are actually pragmatic. I don't want to say conservative, but they don't want to lose money. They want to do the things they say, and they're more conservative. And I empathize with that because when I started Bullish, I was supposed to become the chief marketing officer of Under Armour. And I said no, and the founder was ticked and didn't want to talk to me. And he's like, well, I'm going to back you in whatever you're doing. And I explained it to him. He's like, that sounds cool. I'm in for this. And I'm like, hold on to that because I need to make my mistake. I'm going to invest my own money. I need to make mistakes first because that's James's 529 money.
Right.
Now, Kevin was worth $8 billion at the time. James was his 12-year-old. I think college was paid for. It was just the chip on the shoulder that I had is like, if people, and listen, I have neighbors of mine that are investors in our fund. If I'm going to walk into a store, I want to look them in the eye. Like we better be doing well. Listen, if we're not doing well, I'm no longer having a house in Riverside, right? But it's like, we need to be doing well or else it's game over. So that's just the way I believed. What I learned after a few years is that doesn't pay in venture. Audacity does. Audacity pays. And if you look at it, the reason why we're a weird asset class is venture capital is the only asset class I know of that gets paid to lose investor money. What I mean by that, about 65% of all venture-backed businesses are going to fail. So that means I could be wrong and be wrong 65% of the time, be right 35% of the time, and really right 5% of the time. And we're doing fund returners. Peloton, we got 22 times our money in 4.5 years. We got out before the IPO. Warby Parker was 19 times. Bubble is going to be double both those on that side. So that's a great thing. So if something goes to zero, it stinks, but you only lose your money once. Great entrepreneurs, great firms make your money times over. And so it's audacity pays off. And when you see things like the Adam Newman of WeWork and all this stuff, it's just like, wow, that's crazy. And how could he? But there's something about storytelling on that side. And the important thing is, and I'll get off my soapbox, is when women do something great, they seem to be vilified. You look at things like, Theranos is like, okay, that's a prosecution thing. You get Away was bad behavior, and that was written up. Stitch Fix, not so much. Glossier with Emily Weiss. So there's a vilification to it too. So it's tough to be a founder. It's certainly no easier to be a female founder. And then a lot of networks, like, quite frankly, when you look at the investors, and this is more private equity to those listening, is dorky white. I'm a dorky white guy with glasses who always think them and their wives are the consumer. And it's like, that's not usually the case. No. It's the consumer goes to Walmart and makes $53,000 a year household. So that's a take on it. And hopefully that's not offensive to anybody or ever, but it's like, that's kind of what we see. It's like venture capital rewards audacity because we expect there to be losers, but the winner's going to hit it really, really big. And we see a lot of people that are almost, well, it's not going to, I'm working on this. Honesty almost doesn't pay. That to be the takeaway and the highlight of it. There's something like, if you don't have this, if I don't get the sense that you have an irrational belief that your business is going to succeed and make zillions, why should I bet on that? Because that's the bet I need to make, is like, we're a go big or go home type of environment. That said, there are multiple ways to raise capital and outside funding, like Connecticut Innovations, who we're blessed to call as an investor. They are innovative. They will back Connecticut-based companies. They will root for you. So there's new ways to do it. So I never tell people, don't be yourself. Be the best damn version of yourself, especially when you might have 20 minutes to convince someone to give you a $5,000 check. That's where the game show and the ridiculous Shark Tank does have a point.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's great advice to end on and hopeful advice to end on, as well as, I can make the justification for places like HAYVN for people, A, to be in community, B, to be supportive and not vilified. and to get support in their endeavors, be it the startup, be it supporting a startup, or meeting, getting connected to people like you and the community that supports HAYVN. So we're happy you're a greedy capitalist and that you're in community with HAYVN. Mike, for people who want to find you, connect with you, learn more about Bullish, what's the best way to connect?
Sure. Bullish.co. That's .co, not .com. I'm usually yelling at people on Twitter or X at Mike Duda, and usually at HAYVN every 4 or 5 months or so. And hopefully HAYVN will keep growing and that there's going to be new cities. Like, I think the HAYVN model is going to be better for long-term entrepreneurship and capitalism and community than the Y Combinator's of the world. So go, HAYVN, go.
Thank you. I can't top that. Thank you for being here, Mike. And thank you, listeners, for your time in another episode. If you like what you hear, which I certainly did on this particular episode, please share it with others. Give us a review. And we'll be back with another episode of the HAYVN Hubcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the HAYVN Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. HAYVN is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. HAYVN is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the HAYVN community online at hayvn.com. That's HAYVN.com. HAYVN Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.